Capology, the study or science of salary caps.
And the only podcast breaking down the NFL salary cap.
Go beyond metrics, analysis, and game tape, and dig deeper.
With Jason Waltman.
We called him the Legion of Whom, right?
An episode before I even joined the show.
Yeah, that's when it was good.
Yeah, okay.
Andrew Moss.
He is 1 or 2 Popeyes biscuits away from being a tight end.
And Troy Olsen.
We're gonna get there. Actually, that's next. Calm down there, Andrew. Let me host. I'll get you there.
Okay.
The NFL is a business.
Show me the money.
And it's time to go to class.
The Capology 101 podcast.
Part of the Factory Sports Network.
And powered by DynastyFootballFactory.com.
You know what they say, that money calling, that money on the phone.
Hey, we got to cash in, man. We got to cash in.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 55 of Capology 101 podcast, a podcast where we break down the salary cap and give you an edge over your league mates. My name is Troy Olsen at DFF Voice. Normally, I'd be here with Jason Waltner at DFFJ Waltner, but he had his computer die on him today. So it's just going to be myself and, of course, our good friend Andrew Moss at NFL Sharp Tampa. How's it going, Andrew?
I'm feeling really special right now. I think this is the first time my name has been announced first on the show ever.
I mean, I can always change that up. That's easy. In today's episode, we're going to talk about guys that have been injured, which is half the league, apparently, since we were last on the air. And we'll, of course, look at any other salary cap-related moves that fit as well. But first, here's a pretty cool announcement.
DynastyFootballFactory.com has it all. Impact articles, a full scope of fantasy football rankings, ADP, and exclusive members-only access to Factory Sports Slack channel, Dynasty, Redraft, IDP, Devi, and even DFS. A Factory Sports membership unlocks it all, and annual memberships are free. That's right, we've partnered with DraftKings to bring you your annual sports membership for free. Just go to DynastyFootballFactory.com/shop and click on the DraftKings membership promo. Sign up for your DraftKings account, deposit just $20, and you'll receive a free $10 bonus and free Factory Sports annual membership. Eligibility and restrictions apply. See website for details. So act now and become a Factory Sports member for free. Visit DynastyFootballFactory.com/shop today.
So with Jason not here, we're going to kind of do something different. Plus, since it's been a couple weeks since we've been on with me having vacation and then a work thing that messed us up, it's just Andrew and I tonight. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a few players that are kind of the same and then look at the injuries that are affecting these teams. So, Andrew, first off, it's an exciting time out in Carolina.
And the Deeks are 4-0.
No, that's true, too. So, of course, since we've been on last, half the league's quarterbacks are now injured. Not really, but it feels like it. It actually was 25% of all starting quarterbacks have been injured now or changed with Andrew Luck's retirement. But with that, two that have happened recently that are heavily affected is Mason Rudolph is now the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that is looking to acquire another tight end because their tight end we just found out today got hurt and was walking around in a sling, and Jesse James was walking around in a sling. So they went out and got Nick Vannett for a third-round pick. But that's not actually the player from the Steelers that has our attention. That would be Juju Smith-Schuster, who, of course, a lot of people thought could be the number one overall wide receiver this year. Now, people don't know if he can do it under Mason Rudolph. There's also another major receiver that a lot of people thought could be number one, and that's Michael Thomas, who is affected because Drew Brees has a broken thumb and is out 8 weeks, and everybody's hottest backup quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, will step in for the Saints. So if you were to have to choose between one of them, because most aren't going to have both.
But I think I do in one league.
You do in one league?
I have a ton of both these guys.
So looking at Michael Thomas and Juju Smith-Schuster, how does this affect them overall as far as, are you concerned about either one of them?
Actually, yeah, I'd say that if I'm concerned about one of them, I'm a little bit more concerned about Thomas, just because I'm not concerned at all about Juju. The Steelers are bad this year. And do you know what bad teams do, especially at the end of games? And that's good for fantasy football? They throw the ball. So Mason Rudolph can suck, but as long as he's able to throw a couple of jump balls to Juju in garbage time, there's going to be more opportunity for him to run routes, where the Saints have a much better defense and the Saints may continue to contend. So they're going to continue to contend, but also have a drop-off in the offense. So just from a offensive environment standpoint, I think Juju is in a much better spot at the moment than Thomas. The Saints do have a lot more money committed to Thomas, and he is. It's interesting that they were only drafted 1 year apart, both in the second round. Juju 62 overall, Michael Thomas 47 overall. But because Juju was drafted a year before, he hasn't gotten paid yet, and I'm not sure why they would want to, other than the fact the Steelers don't like paying their star players, even though I think receiver matters a lot more than running back. That's another topic for another show. But Juju's last year of his contract is 2020 because he wasn't a first-round pick and doesn't have a fifth-year option. So it was just 2017, 18, 19, 20. So if he doesn't get a new deal, we could see Juju's situation is a little bit more in flux, but I'm sure he'll get an extension soon in terms of dynasty value. If you're going to look to acquire him, I would definitely do it before. There's going to be a window here where the offensive environment of the Steelers looks bad. It's going to be probably have until 2021 draft when they draft a quarterback because of another guy we're going to talk about on this show and why they don't have a first-round pick. But Thomas is locked in through 2021 in his contract. So he'll be steady with Sean Payton and, again, another team that will potentially be drafting a quarterback. But I'd say that I like Juju this year, but in the long run over the next couple of years, I will take Thomas potentially because of the greater level of stability in his contract and definitely has a better quarterback at the moment.
Obviously, Mason Rudolph and Teddy Bridgewater probably aren't taking much in salary cap leagues. Is that fair to say?
They're both backups, so they probably weren't in any kind of auction. With any team that is a non-contending team is an opportunity to buy those quarterbacks, the injured quarterbacks being Roethlisberger and Brees, at a discounted price because the teams that are contending need every last dollar space to be contributing on the roster to make a run. But if you're obviously, I don't know if you can say that the team is out of it by week 3, but as you creep to week 4 or 5, they're still injured. It might be time to make a move on getting one of those guys at a discount where you can get a late round pick or a bottom of your bench player in a salary dump type trade so you can contend next year if they're still playing.
So in that salary dump idea, how much space would a non-contending team need in order to take on these contracts, just in a percentage base? Because obviously every league's different. Every league has a different cap.
In the standard scoring system, our quarterbacks are valued a little lower than the top running back wide receivers because of quarterback 1 scores closer to quarterback 10 than running back 1 does, scoring with running back 10 or 20. So you're looking at these guys looking at 10 to 15% of your cap, probably about 10% of your cap is what you would trade. So you would ideally try to unload, if you have space in our non-contending team, you would trade either draft picks or a couple of your $1 or $2 players that are clearly less talented, but it's a situation where you could get value next year at the expense of not being contending this year.
And then let's jump to the opposite side of the ball. Something we don't talk very much on this show is the IDP side of things, but that's been a hot topic because of a trade that has happened and a trade that may happen. You have Minkah Fitzpatrick now joining the Steelers, who we were just talking about, and Jalen Ramsey, who is going to join the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we don't know that yet, but that's what a lot of people are wanting to see happen to give the Chiefs something of a decent defense. But Jalen Ramsey still with the Jags, says he's going to report tomorrow, that being Wednesday, and Minkah Fitzpatrick with the Steelers. First off, a lot of people have been hard on the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade because, like you said, the Steelers are bad. Now, the Steelers don't think they're bad. They're still making moves to be a contending team. You don't believe that that's the case, but they do. And then additionally, Minkah's signed, because he's on a rookie deal. He's got 3 years left, correct?
The Dolphins had the potential for the 5th-year option, but since he was traded, that 5th-year option is void. So the Steelers, his last actual year is 2021, and the Steelers are going to have to sign him to a new deal.
A lot of people are hard on the Steelers for giving up what could be a top 8 pick. And I get that, but you're also getting a top-end defensive player. I mean, really, they could have gotten their quarterback in the future, but they believe in their minds that that's Mason Rudolph. Do you feel like this was a good trade for the Steelers, getting a player that has some time locked, that's low cost to their cap, that will allow them to do things in the future, but they gave up potentially a top 8 pick? Do you feel like it was a good move for them?
So I'm torn, really torn, because I love Minkah as a player, and he was tied for my top-rated player in that draft class, Quentin Nelson. And another good benefit of this is that when you trade a player, the team that trades the player is on the hook for all the guaranteed money. So the way the contract works right now, the Steelers owe him about 1.1 base salary this year, about $2 million base salary next year, about 2.7 base salary in 2021, and all those are with no dead money because the Dolphins are on the hook this year for the $5.9 million in dead money for Minkah Fitzpatrick. So it is definitely a market inefficiency to an extent that the Steelers are able to have such an elite player with essentially year-by-year flexibility at this price. But the only bigger market inefficiency than an all-star defensive player on a rookie contract would be in a Pro Bowl or an elite rookie quarterback, and you're missing the opportunity to take a swing at that.
There's the other side of that, which is the really, really potentially historically bad Miami Dolphins, and I don't know if you have this in front of you, but what is their cap situation like going into next year when they're going to have these picks and not have to really spend any money on the guys that they draft, but that they could go out and also sign some free agents and really turn this whole thing around in 1 year, at most 2 years? I mean, are the Dolphins putting themselves in a good position to make this kind of move?
So whatever the over-under is for the Dolphins' 2020 win total, I'm not sure if that's a real thing you can bet right now. But I bet somewhere you can. I want to bet the over because they are going to have like $160 million in cap, right? They have literally. So I wrote an article a while back for Optimum Scouting about team building cycles and how you have a core of players that bring you through, and you have your core, and then you sign them all onto their long-term deals, and then you draft a new core of young players. But there's literally no core of players. Like every single player on the Dolphins is on a cheap contract. It's kind of unbelievable. So they're just to get to the cap floor next year, they're going to have to sign some free agents. And in spending $140 million, $150 million, they're bound to sign some good players, and the team is bound to look drastically different than they did in 2019. And they are looking in 2019, which is clearly awful. Josh Rosen is going to have to get some help eventually.
And it's just too bad that he can't get traded to one of these teams that had an injury and actually play behind an actual line so we could actually see what he's like as a player. Because Josh Rosen gets a hard time because he's he comes from money. And so people say that lessens him as an NFL player because he doesn't need this. Well, Andrew Luck made that true because Andrew Luck comes from money and he didn't need football, but he also had made $100 million on his own and he walked away. Rosen has made more money than most of us will make in our lifetimes. He could walk away from the game in the next year or two and live a very good life and probably make a lot of money in other areas and not need the Dolphins if the Dolphins do decide to go with a quarterback, which is expected in this draft. And it's hard to say, oh, poor guy, because he is going to make a lot of money, and he doesn't seem to love football necessarily more than it's a career to him, a job. It is unfair that we aren't ever going to see the quality of the player that he is.
So scouting quarterbacks is the other thing I do other than the salary cap and the other analytics betting stuff that I do. Josh Rosen is the highest grade I've ever given to a quarterback, so I'm really rooting for this kid.
Where would you like to see him land if you could just pick anywhere?
So I'm fine with Miami. Scouting quarterbacks is one of my favorite other real thing that I got into Twitter for, other than got into the betting and analytics. That's what I ended up doing in school. Josh Rosen is the highest graded quarterback we've ever had, and I'm really rooting for him. But I think Miami is fine for him as a landing spot. One of the things that is so brutal for him this year is his offensive line. And as someone who plays much better in structure than out of structure, is being forced to bail the structure and make plays on his own every single play because the offensive line is so bad. If they end up spending a lot of these picks on the offensive and defensive line instead of trading up or having number one pick taking a quarterback, I can see Miami a spot where Josh Rosen really ends up thriving. Again, because they have so much cap room, they're going to have to spend it on some players. And if they value what Josh Rosen could be, and they put some of that money to support him a little bit and give him a real fair shot, which he hasn't had yet in the NFL, I think we could see a totally different looking Dolphins offense in 2020.
DFF_Shane from the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast recently said on one of their shows that if they would just go and get whatever sexy players they want in the first round next year, because they're going to have, 2 or 3 first round picks right now in 2020. It's 2,
they
isn't
have
it?
3. They own Pittsburgh's and they own Houston's and theirs, obviously.
They could go get sexy players in the first round. They could even go, because I think they have 3 more in the second. They could go get sexy players in the second round, and then they could use the 3rd through the 7th round to just do nothing but offensive line and maybe go sign, a free agent or 2 to go along with it. And then in 2021, take all the picks they have. And again, they can do the sexy things, the sexy players in the first round or even the first and second, and then focus on the defense. And in 2 years, you have a whole new team that could legitimately be a contender right off the bat. Now, you don't like to see that many rookies on your lines, but they could do that because they're going to have the ability. It's going to be one of the most interesting teams. That I think it's going to be, if you just enjoy football, it's going to be one of the most interesting turnarounds or potential turnarounds to watch that could happen, because I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like it.
And there are a lot of players that are going to be unrestricted free agents next year that could help them. If you look at a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, who may or may not return to Seattle, and you have guys like Dave Fowler might not get re-signed, Michael Brockers, the Rams are always right against cap, and there's potential for guys that really help them on the line, and that could be something to watch as guys who are going to get $10 million plus contracts average annual per year, who could really help them because they have the room where they can go out and sign those big free agents.
Scout NFL football like a pro. Invest in yourself and get a degree in player evaluation and assessment from the Scouting Academy. They've educated NFL GMs, personnel directors, and dozens of NFL scouts. Enroll today and you'll watch the same game tape NFL coaches watch. You'll learn to look past the metrics with position-by-position analysis. This is a time-tested curriculum, a chance to learn from the NFL execs and coaches. Sign up today and get a Dynasty Football Factory exclusive discount for a limited time only. Save $50 when you sign up at dynastyfootballfactory.com.
So that's the Scouting Academy. Check them out if you're looking to learn more about how to evaluate these players like we're talking about. Scouting Academy is a great place to learn some of that information. So Jalen Ramsey, he doesn't want to be at the Jags anymore. Jags say they're not trading him. He suddenly gets a case of the flu on the first day back this week, and now he's going to report tomorrow, but it's just not a good situation. He's a bit of a diva, but that seems to be very common in the NFL anymore, and more so than it used to be. Maybe it's because we have social media. But I guess first off, we were talking about how the team that has Ramsey, the Jaguars, has to eat most of his contract. So what does that look like? If the Jags trade Ramsey, how much are they stuck sitting on?
So if the Jags trade Ramsey, they owe him $7.5 million dead cap this year. But that's not the problem. The problem with trading for Jalen Ramsey is that the team that trades for him is immediately going to have to sign him to an extension or face the Laramie Tunsil, I have all the leverage situation. So when the Jags trade Ramsey, they're going to void his fifth-year option, which makes 2019 the last year of his deal. So they're going to have to negotiate some kind of long extension with a lot of guaranteed money, which is what I'm sure he wants in addition to going to a winner. And a team needs to have the cap space up front to do that. So where Minkah Fitzpatrick, you had him, even though it void his fifth-year option, they have him as a cost control player for 3 years. With Jalen Ramsey, there's no cost control. But his contract immediately expires after the season. You got to sign him to a brand new deal at market value. Maybe that's part of Jalen Ramsey's leverage, is because his fifth-year option with the Jags would be $13.7 million. His average annual per year could be up to $20 million in a new deal. Maybe he thinks he's going to have a short career and wants to maximize his earning potential. Maybe he thinks he has a long career and he wants to maximize his earning potential.
Well, he says he wants to win. Going back all the way to high school, he's always shown this heavy desire to win. Like, winning is the most important thing to him. Now, I'm sure getting paid will help along with winning, and he can do that in Kansas City or, several other places. But everybody talks about Kansas City because their defense is so atrocious, and a player like Jalen Ramsey changes everything for KC. Are they in a position? I mean, obviously they don't have to take much this year, but are they in a position to give a guy like Ramsey a long-term deal?
So at the current moment, they have $21 million in space. And then you have to look at the expiring contracts of who is coming up here. I mean, they're getting $16 million in dead money off the books. They don't have a lot of cap space. They're only projected to have $24 million in cap space. So it would require cutting a player like Sammy Watkins, who would save, looks like $14 million, making him a pre-June 1 cut.
That's almost a guarantee.
Oh, yeah. And we talked about this when he got signed, how his base salary was enough dead money was on the books where they could cut him, or they'd save $21 million and $7 million would be as they would in total save as a net save $14 million. So would guarantee a Watkins cut. They would probably end up having to cut Eric Fisher, maybe. They're obviously not cutting Travis Kelce. I think a team like the Colts, who are also contending and also need help on the back end, have plenty of room to sign him. I've been giving the Colts as a destination for every big ticket player since the offseason. But the Colts still have a lot of cap room because they didn't really make any big moves. Other than, they gave Devin Funchess a 1-year deal. He hasn't really played much.
Right, and they're going to have to spend some money at some point, and so that'll be an interesting move to see. Let's take a quick look at the Giants. How much dead money are they sitting on? Like, are they in a bad position for this year? Because they've went out and talked to a few running backs, and they're probably not going to have to pay very much to get a Saquon Barkley replacement, and because Barkley has been talked about possibly needing a special surgery, and he could be out 6 weeks. He could be out the rest of the season.
The tightrope surgery. It's the Tua Tagovailoa surgery where they use string and push your ankle back together.
And what's the out time on something like that?
I mean, it's faster than a regular high ankle sprain, but a high ankle sprain conservatively 6 to 8 weeks. I put in 81% of my free agent acquisition budget in my biggest redraft league on Wayne Gallman, and this is the reason that you come into the year with $5 to $10 million of cap space. They at the moment have just over 4, which is plenty for whatever running back they have. But they had traded Odell Beckham, who was $16 million in dead money. They have $5 million in total of dead money of players that they cut or not making the roster. It's a good thing that Saquon Barkley obviously is on a rookie deal. He's only his base salary this year is only $570,000. So he himself isn't taking up that much space. If you are in the salary cap league, this is going to be your best opportunity maybe ever by Saquon Barkley. Because whatever this contract is, 25%, 30%, 35% of your cap, if your team is dead, you're going to end up cutting a bunch of players that matter a lot less than Saquon Barkley, and you're going to end up being able to make a move for him for maybe a first-round pick and a solid player. Where you're going to do something where you're giving cap relief to get this player.
And it's not limited to salary cap leagues right now. A friend of mine he messaged me earlier today. He said that he traded, and this is something that you could probably look at in a salary cap league, and some of these salaries would be similar to make space, but his team is not contending this year. He gave up Patrick Mahomes, T.Y. Hilton, and Devonta Freeman. So T.Y. Hilton is potentially, getting older. He's not going to be around a long time. I think Devonta Freeman is washed. A lot of people are still real high on him, saying he looked okay this year. He just hasn't gotten the volume. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes is a god among QBs. But he traded those three. He picked up Saquon Barkley, Drew Brees, and a 2020 second-round pick, by extension, an empty roster spot that he could, go out and pick up Wayne Gallman or whoever else he decided to go after. If he's bad, he'll have a higher waiver spot. He put it through a trade calculator that we both use, and it's the greatest trade he's ever made based on what the calculator says. And this is the time that if you're in a team, salary cap league, regular league, whatever you want to do, you need to go out and make the move for Barkley now, because the team that has Barkley most likely was in contention, and now they're not. And so this is your chance to really, really dig down deep and get them. So how would it work in a salary cap league for Wayne Gallman? What happens now?
So everybody's going to put in a bid for Wayne Gallman based on a contract. And it's a matter of who's willing to offer him the most contract. I still, in a salary cap league, which is obviously a dynasty, is clearly not worth more than 5% because he's someone whose value is going to get down drastically after Saquon comes back. And you don't want to have that 5% that you can't get rid of. I guess if you're a team that is contending and has players that you could cut in a little bit of space, you could do the kind of thing where you overpay and then cut them at the end of the season, because you can sign them to a 1-year deal in the salary cap league. But I just don't see him as a long-term, and obviously not a long-term kind of solution to be able to pay him a lot of money in the salary cap league.
And he's a guy that they've had for a while that's never been that great. But they've looked at some guys, but the guys that they looked at weren't great either. So there's always the chance that you're going to spend a lot of you might spend some of your space in a salary cap league or a lot of fab. I'm looking at, hopefully I don't put this out till after it runs, but there's a couple of leagues that I've got like 97 out of $100. So I'm literally going to spend probably 95 of my $97 on Gallman just because I don't want him to get to some of the higher guys, and I'm struggling in one league, so he might be the difference. He could be a legitimate RB2 for the rest of the season.
I went 0 RB, and every single draft except for one. I mean, picking up guys like Gallman is my strategy of winning.
So you do see him as making a difference the rest of the season.
Get me to the playoffs, and until somebody else gets hurt for me to pick up on waivers, sure.
Daniel Jones is now the starting QB in the Giants, not because of injury, but because Eli's just old, and apparently Eli took it really well, which is surprising. I guess I still see Eli as the player that stood all pouty on the stage when he was drafted by San Diego, kind of looked like he was having a fit, and after weeks of hearing about how the Mannings did not want him to go to San Diego, and then, of course, he's traded to the Giants, and San Diego gets Rivers, and life goes on, and the Giants win 2 Super Bowls in spite of Eli, which I know I'm going to make a lot of people mad, but
we can have a big echo chamber of the Eli Manning Hall of Fame debate. So I agree with you.
So I guess Eli took it really well, and as soon as he was told that he was no longer the starter, he immediately went to the QB room and started helping Daniel Jones get ready for the game, and Jones looked great. And Jones is going to be more mobile, obviously, so he's going to take up some running himself, which is a lot of people are talking about. They're going to be down a lot, so they're going to be passing a lot. You just can't pass every time. He's not going to be able to run every time. There's going to be work for Gallman. He is literally the only guy there. You don't have to be a good running back if you get volume. I think there's volume there for Gallman, and that's what you're looking at as well.
Yeah, I even hit it right on the head. You don't have to be a good running back to be good in fantasy or to have opportunity.
Real quick, let's hear from our friends over at bestfantasyfootball.com.
bestfantasyfootballleague.com. Join a 12-team dynasty startup draft today. Leagues start at just $49 and go up to $999. Starting lineups of 1 quarterback, 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 2 flex spots. They also have best ball leagues, weekly leagues, and redraft leagues with 6 different starting lineup options in 10, 12, and 14 team leagues. bestfantasyfootballleague.com. The best fantasy football leagues on the net.
That was bestfantasyfootball.com. Those are great guys. They got lots of options over there, so go check them out. It's a great chance to do some different things with your fantasy football money or your fantasy football games, however you want to play it. That's going to wrap up episode 55. We hope to be back in full force next week. We're going to switch gears and start looking at the teams and who to cut and who to keep, because these are the type of moves that are going to matter coming up here real quick. Like many of you are coming up on trade deadlines. If you have some leagues, I know have trade deadlines as early as the old NFL deadline, which is week 6. Others might follow the current trade deadline for the NFL, or you might be like me and you go all the way until the first week of the playoffs. So,
oh, that's awful.
Really? You don't like that?
Yeah, I really don't. It's very easy for not collusion you look at trades, but trades where you're able to get exploitative deal on both sides, where the teams that are contending are really able to mortgage themselves for a super team. It really throws off the competitive balance in the long term.
But see, I would say the competitive balance isn't torn because it gives a chance for the teams that need a lot of help to get all that help and to turn it around within 2 seasons, which we've seen in some of my leagues. That's why we've left it there. But I actually had a league last year that it was not intentionally at first, but since it was kind of a test league, we were testing out Sleeper, the app Sleeper. And so we never turned the trade deadline on. So it was never on. Like, it was open through the playoffs. And we actually voted to keep trading open through the playoffs just to see what would happen. And it allowed me to turn around a team that ended up with some injuries and it wasn't very good. But kind of like you said, it was not colluding, but it got me what I needed as a team that was out of it. And the guy that ended up winning, him and I just pretty much did a huge pick trade, and he took the players that were hot at the time. I got a bunch of picks and young guys, and now my team's 3-0. It's my best team that I have is in that league. But
I would be so livid if I was a guy who was trying to build a multiple-year contender. I got steamrolled in the playoffs like that, or because they weren't more to play ball like that.
It'll never happen again, because after we saw how it worked out, that's kind of how people felt. And we kept the league going. It was free last year. We're going to do a $10 thing this year. Everybody was fine with $10 for this year. It's just a cheapie that we wanted to test out things on Sleeper. So it was mostly friends of friends, and it was an easy league. But if you ever want to try something different, start up a league, a dynasty league, and leave trading off. Now, I know there are some people that do that. And in our leagues going forward, because of how many options there are on Sleeper, teams that are out of the playoffs will be allowed to trade all year because what they're doing in the playoffs doesn't affect. Yeah, but I don't ever like to turn off trading. I think trading is such a big part of Dynasty and why it's great that you can never turn it off. So got a little sidetracked there, but yeah, if you have any funky rules in your league, send them over to me at DFF Voice. I would love to hear. I love to hear the weird rules. I always like to try to see what people have out there, and then I either do a redraft league or even a dynasty league the next year with trying out different people's rules just to see how they affect teams.
I did that this year, and I'm in 15 leagues.
Yeah, I'm in a lot this year. I've never been in more than 3 or 4, and I think I'm in about 10 or 11, and some of them are pretty deep. Like I did a 16-man league with the guys from the Back Road Fantasy Football, and Bart is running that, and it's a 16-team league. I drafted 16th. I hated my draft. From like about halfway through, I just hated my draft. I wasn't getting the guys I wanted, and you couldn't even like readjust because if you missed, I was drafting 16, so if you missed one set of guys, like if you didn't take exactly
31 picks,
yeah, it was 31 picks, and I hated my teams. I had Julio Jones, and I ended up trading him for 2 firsts and Darren Waller, flipped Darren Waller and a third for another first. So I got 2 2020 firsts and a 2021 first for Darren Waller, a third, and Julio, for Julio Jones and a third, essentially, because Waller came over in the original deal. And, that's the kind of deals you had to make. And I made the decision in week 3 that my team was not good enough to compete. That's the decision you have to make. You have to look at your fantasy points. You have to look at where you are, and that's when you make those trades like we're talking about for Saquon Barkley and stuff like that. You got to make those decisions early because right now is the time that you can get the most value because most people think they're still in it. I didn't feel like this was a team I wanted to contend with. I love the next 2 drafts. Now those picks may end up being pick 15 and 16, which kind of sucks, but I'm going to have pick 1 more than likely because my team's awful. So I'm going to have 1, 15 and 16 this year. I'm going to have, probably another high pick next year unless these are able to really turn around my team, and then I'll have a couple more, what you would consider upper to mid-round, second-round picks in a normal league. So, and I got it for a 30-year-old wide receiver that I knew I wasn't going to use this year, and he is on fire right now. So it was the perfect time to do it. But with all that said, I think we were trying to get out of here. So let's keep working on that. Thanks everybody for listening. That's going to do it for episode 55. Thanks for taking the time to listen. If you enjoyed the pod, please follow us on Twitter at Capology101 for the latest topics and content. Give us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and also take some time out to check out the Dynasty Football Network at BF_network. There you'll find access to our full lineup of podcasts. And as you heard in the ad earlier, you got a chance to get a full year free. And we do appreciate when people subscribe to the site and even using the free option because that allows us to get paid as writers because I also write for the site. So go check it out. And until next week, we'll have everybody back together. Next week, we're going to take a look at some teams and seeing where the cut options are so you can make the moves you need to make and get ahead of players that might have a better opportunity next year or even a worse one. So you got a chance to get ahead of it. So until then, we'll see you at episode 56. Have a great day and go win some fantasy football games.